Good morning, everyone. Welcome to FutureOps Roundtable, where we'll be discussing about AI and DevOps, how the merger is happening and helping us everyone. I am your facilitator today, Hemant Rathod. I am technical specialist in Microsoft, and I work lots with DevOps and open source technologies. And I'm a tech enthusiast with around 15 years of expertise. Along with we have lots of panelists, and I would like to introduce them one by one. The first one, which I like to introduce, is Sandeep Rawat. He's a co-founder with and a DevOps architect with 20 years of vast experience. Everyone knows him. He's the co-founder of Opstree. He's shaping DevOps culture for more than a decade, and he's a hands-on leader. He blends technical mastery with internships, driving automation efficiencies across the global enterprises. Welcome on board, Sandeep.
Thanks, Evan.
Next, we have Prakash. He's DevOps. He's the head of Daftron. He's a DevOps leader. He's leading enterprise solutions at Daftron. He's expert in cloud native technologies and automations, and he have achieved lots of faster onboardings and a higher standards of customer satisfactions. He comes with deep technical masterages, and he's a strategic customer advocate. Welcome on board, Prakash.
Thank you.
Next, I would like to introduce Ankush. He's a tech
Hi, everyone.
entrepreneur and he's leading SquareOps and Atomsly in cloud innovation. He comes with the deep expertise in open source, AWS, Google Cloud, and Kubernetes. And he's a strategic business leader. Welcome on board, Ankush Madan.
Thank you.
Now, I'd like to introduce Jaideep Khandelwal. He's the founder of and CTO of One2N. He is also an hands-on engineer who has built and architect solutions for the fast-paced startups. He leads large enterprises also, and he has solutions from clouds to data centers. He has a keen
Hello.
interest in areas of platform engineering, observability, team topologies, and FinOps, GitOps, etc. Welcome on board, Jaideep.
Thank you.
Now, I'd like to introduce Neha Singhal. She is senior engineering manager from Delivery, an emerging engineering leader. She works more on scaling products across supply chain, retails, and e-commerce section. Leads a team of more than 40 plus engineers. Has built systems for 10x growth. Drives mission critical logistics solutions at Delivery, and she's a cloud native expert with passion for high scale architecture and microservices. Welcome on board, Neha.
Hey everyone.
So this was the introductions of our panelists, and hope can see there are a lot of already participants who have joined it picture. And we'll not waste more time. We'll start with to understand what AI is making changes to the DevOps world. Before that, let me ask some questions and try to understand what is DevOps. We see lot of words around the DevOps like DevOps, DevSecOps, platform engineering, right? And now we are seeing AI is also getting blended into everything, and it is getting blended with DevOps and platform engineering also. Also, so I like to go and ask to Ankush, what you would like to define platform engineering, DevOps, DevSecOps, and how they are evolving with the help of AI. Over to
Okay.
you, Ankush.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you for hosting me. Okay. So, going back to your question, DevOps, DevSecOps, platform engineering. Okay. So, let's cover first with the how actually DevOps started, where actually it started from. So that would give a little context to everyone, right? So if we go like a decade back, when the companies, a traditional system used to be that okay, a developer will build the code, right? They would continue building up, writing the code and everything for a couple of weeks, months, and then they would transition it to the ops team for the deployment. And that's where generally the issues would come. The deployment cycles would be long. Okay, there would be a differences between the devs and the ops in understanding and the deployment of the overall the code that has been developed. Okay, so that's how the term DevOps started, which was more of a cultural shift. Okay, that the dev and the ops should come in together, right, and help solve those challenges in terms of that the speed at which we one should be able to deploy the code. And that actually started more with the cloud advancement and everything. So now you see that the teams are shipping their code probably every day or multiple times in a day as well. So that's the transition that has happened with DevOps. Now, in literal terms, let me first give what DevOps is not actually, which is a perceived notion. Okay, so DevOps is not just about tools and automation. So let's first clarify. So if someone says that okay, they have Jenkins installed, they are using Kubernetes or they are using Terraform, that just does not mean that okay, one is doing Terraform, one is doing DevOps. Okay, it just means that okay, we have the tools in place which helps automating certain aspects of the overall delivery of your code, your application and all. Okay, but basically to be in a successful DevOps team, it's more about the culture, okay, that you build, that the developers understand the overall ecosystem of the deployment as well, and the ops also understand the entire cycle from development, okay, from security perspective and everything. And that's how they are able to ship a better code and at a much faster pace. Okay, so if I have to summarize it in an example, it's like having an F1 car. Okay, right? You have a superb F1 car, then you need to have a superb driver to drive it, and then you need to have a technical strategies in place, right, as well, to be at the top of the podium. That's what DevOps is. Now, coming to DevSecOps, so basically, when we integrate security within the entire life cycle of our deployments, that becomes DevSecOps. And why it became important was that okay, when DevOps came into the picture, we started actually shipping out the codes much faster in every terms, but security was not the core function of our developers. Okay, so that's where the security lapses, the vulnerabilities and everything probably started coming up, okay, at a much faster pace compared to the old times. And that's why the term DevSecOps came into the picture, that we should start integrating security from the start itself. So that starts with the integrating certain security tools within your CI/CD pipelines. Okay, before even we move the code to a dev environment or a QA environment, one should run test cases, one should run certain security scans and all. Okay, now okay, the next question could be that okay, if DevOps is working so fine and DevSecOps also exists, what's the need of a platform engineering? Okay, so let's differentiate a little that how platform engineering actually differs from DevOps or DevSecOps. Okay, so again, DevSecOps, it was more of a practice. It was more of setting up uh, everything together so that the one can ship the code. But with this rapid advancement, the rapid pace at which the codes are getting shipped and everything, uh, generally the developers were still lacking in terms of the dependency on the DevOps teams to ship the code or even to understand the cloud technologies, the cloud languages. Okay, for example, if someone has to they need an infrastructure, either they need to understand that particular cloud or they need to understand Terraform or something, or they have to be dependent upon a DevOps person at least if they have to deploy their application. So the platform engineering is like enabling the developers to deploy their application smoothly without even understanding the core complexities of cloud, or you could say Kubernetes, or the CI/CD. So in platform engineering, the team develops golden paths, which in terms is called as an internal developer portals as well. Okay. So I would term it as a very similar to what Postman has done for the APIs. So if a developer is developing APIs these days, right, 80-90% of the time, the teams are using Postman, right? In a similar way, if the developer has to deploy their code to, let's suppose, say, any environment, whether it's a production, a QA, or a test environment or something, they do not need to go to a DevOps engineer or something. So the work is that, okay, there is a single platform where they log in. Okay, there are the set standards in terms of security, in terms of you could say guardrails and everything already in place, right? So all they need to do is pick certain configurations out of it, and they should be able to deploy. So that gives a much faster productivity to the developers, that they are able to deploy and ship a code at again a much faster pace. Okay, so this is what basically the platform engineering is, and that's what we are also trying to solve with our product at Mostly. So thank you. That's I guess a definition from my end.
Thanks. This was really exciting. And to be frank, I also got a lot of more differences now between DevOps, DevSecOps, and platform engineering. Now, I have more insights. Like people now tell us, like, now I'm working with AI ML, and now how I can go ahead and leverage AI ML with the part, and I'm creating DevOps with the help of AI ML. So, will anyone like to answer into those part?
Mm, okay, I can give one small example where we are using AI/ML. Okay, in terms of our platform. For example, when you are building up in a CI/CD pipeline or something, there can be a n number of reasons that a pipeline can fail. Right now, it might become difficult to understand from an error from a developer's perspective, that what could be the reason for the failure of a pipeline. Okay, so what we have done is we have integrated it with the you could say just with chat GPT APIs as well. So one can select just a text out of it, okay, that which text they want to actually understand better and all, and just click on a debug, and then it would probably give them a more detailed issues of what this exactly means, so that they are able to solve it at a much faster pace. For example, uh, in one of the cases where okay, the pipeline might fail because of the resources. Okay, the CPU, RAM, for whatever reason, okay, the resources have been consumed fully or something, it generally gives you a status code like 134 or something, right, in your scripts and all. So for developer, that's like a black box. They won't be able to understand it. But with this small integration itself, they are able to understand with just 2 clicks that, okay, debug this point, and they would be able to understand better that, okay, this is the probable cause, that the resources that have been provided for probably for my build are insufficient, and they can just go change the resources, and that would be done. Otherwise, this might would have been a challenge, that, okay, they would have to go Google in, okay, what that means, go through a multiple questions and everything, and then figure out what could be the cause of such an issue. So that's just a very small example.
Yes, that is really insightful because I've also seen people struggling a lot when their Revo pipelines failed out because they don't know where it is got failed and everything, and there could be a panic situations, and there will be only few people in the organization who will be knowing how to debug that and make it working right, and that
Correct.
becomes like a black box. And with the help of AI part and this is ChatGPT prompts, it gives them a better insights where they have to go ahead, look out, and solve that particular part. It is really insightful. Anyone of our speakers will like to add something here?
Yeah, I would like to add to that.
Please go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so he took the right examples of debugging capabilities. When we are debugging, we can offload a lot of cognitive load on the AI thing to sort of make sense out of all the metrics and all the logs that we have in front of us, because it may take a person to take may take like a couple of minutes to make sense out of it, while the AI can quickly answer questions on the basis of whatever metrics they are seeing or whatever logs they are getting from an application perspective. So this can also help to sort of decrease the cognitive load on the operator perspective. which means that you can debug faster, you can resolve production issues faster, and without even having like detailed knowledge about whatever is happening in the background, right? So for an example, you can say that let's say that in a Kubernetes environment, a container is not able to pull a certain image from any registry, right? There can be probably reasons for that. There may be a disconnect from the registry itself. There may be a DNS resolution problem. Then there may be that you are not your clusters are not authorized, or your ARM roles are not authorized to pull from that particular registry. So there can be these problems, and the AI can quickly analyze all the logs, all the event logs, to prompt what exactly can be one of the issues, and the corrective actions can be taken as soon as possible. So we have certain debugging capabilities in our product itself that helps you interpret what kind of events are being emitted by the application or by the node itself. So let's say that an application is failing because of a reason, and it's emitting some kind of events, and then there are certain events on the node itself on which the pod is scheduled. So the AI can correlate those events correlated with the metrics on Prometheus, and then give you an outcome that this can be the probable reason and this can be the resolution, and you can go ahead and try it out.
Yes, and thanks, Prakut, for really those insights. This is really helpful. Um,
Hemant, I
anyone
would
of
like to, yeah,
so
can you
Sunny,
hear
please
me?
go ahead.
So I would like to continue with the Ankush example, right? So as Ankush said that it's a very good use case, right? And then obviously, let's say if you take it, you want to take it step forward, right? Where we talk about the real artificial intelligence, which means that you already have a knowledge base from where you came up with some suggestion that okay, this is how should get it resolved, right? But then when you want to take it forward, which means that now your system should build further intelligence, right? So which means that let's say the recommendations that end user got, now there could be n number of recommendations. Now from those recommendation, a person selected a specific recommendation. So which means that now your knowledge based system should build on top of that knowledge so that it will become more intelligent next time, and the accuracy increases over the period of time. So that is the state where, let's say, when you talk about that, let's say I want to integrate the AI ML into my IDP, the ideal state would be something like this, that it has an initial knowledge base, it will build, and ultimately it will try to auto resolve things by itself once it has learned and the accuracy has reached to a certain extent.
Yes, completely in line with you. That the idealistic state that we want to create, that there we have self-healing DevOps pipelines. They can go ahead and ensure that everything works into our pictures. And Neha and Jaddy, will like to add anything here?
Yeah, I can go next. So
Please.
I think at a lot of times everybody likes to say that in any meeting, everybody says that hey, we need to have some documentation. Why? Because if you are in an org, be it any tool that is given, you need to have some documentation, or how does your process, engineering process in the org actually work. And a lot. So there is one thing. I mean, of course, not related to IDP, but basically creating rags on your knowledge base. That hey, this is where your configuration actually needs to go. This is your lower environment configuration. This is your higher environment configuration needs to go, because those are like blind spots for engineers. If you are trying to navigate in an enterprise, 5,000 plus folks, it's a hard problem to solve. So this is where it actually starts coming in. Said, hey, there is a CLI. You just actually ask those questions. That RAG application is built on top of that knowledge base or your Confluent or whatever your documentation system that is used. This is where this is actually I start seeing the value. I mean, of course, what Ankush and Prakash actually talked about, the debugging capabilities is definitely there, because as engineers we don't even understand the own error codes that we have written right? So so this ability to actually make it more human process, and then trying to get at, hey, this is possibility an agent can do. So the two use cases, I think the RAG application is something that we have been working on internally, uh, but again, it requires a lot of resources. And the other thing that you need to be very careful about is where you are sending out the data. So you have to do up a self-hosting of these whole, SLMs or LLMs internally, and allocate some resources there itself.
It's really insightful and relatable, and we have this comment also from Saurav Bera, right? And obviously, all the DevOps engineers, and we, once we go ahead and work into those areas, we know, and this is completely relatable. Thanks for those wonderful insights. Over to you, Neha.
Yeah, I think most of them have already covered all the areas. I have a similar line on that. Like, I'm primarily an application engineer, right? So the challenges that I face on a day-to-day basis, let's take a recent example. I actually faced an outage, not really an outage, but it was more close to had a deployment and did something, and then there were a few configurations that got changed, and let's say an hour later got to, and this is a very real time scenario where I actually got to know that the ground started complaining that the systems are running slow and all of that. In such situations, I think where the ML and the data and all the data that you have from the past, and the matrices that you have from the past, will actually help you understand the system, in a sense that, okay, if the system is actually running slow, how about I add more resources to it? How about I add more pods to it? Maybe my auto scaling isn't working for some reason. How about I manually write a script, and there is a script that actually gets triggered at that point of time, seeing the alarms, and put some add-ons to it. So I think, yeah, on a similar grounds, like while we are talking about all the AI stuff, and how the automation is kicking in, I think these debugging things, well, what happened to me, we took about some 15 minutes. Once the problem was recognized and we got, I mean, callers from the grounds and everything, it took us like 10 minutes, 15 minutes to actually identify, and then actually get into the issue, did the approval, add the scale-ons and everything. This The human intervention could have been removed completely if this was the data production was there, and that debugging would have been there upfront, and then just a suggestion pops up and says that, okay, let's add 10 more resources to it, 10 more pods to it. So I think that ways this helps in general, is what I think.
Thanks, Neha. And it was very full, great insight for me also to learn from the experts. Let's move ahead and now talk more about how the DevOps is constantly evolving and what its hottest trends and innovations are, and how it's reshaping the team builds. We understand about the teams of teams and other parts, and how we can the teams should now go ahead and build, deploy, and operate, and what's now the DevOps cycles looks in current. And I like to ask this question to Sandeep sir.
Thanks, Eamon. Thanks for asking this question. Very broad question. I'll try to answer as much as possible. From my perspective, so see, uh, what I have seen is that I have divided answer of this question into four parts, right? Where we say that, let's say, if I talk about the complete DevOps landscape, right? I was preparing for this talk, and then I was hearing somebody from Google, and that person made a very relatable comment saying that DevOps is all about a field which is all about automating and replacing yourself. Having said that, it is about moving to the next assignment. And if you see, as Ankush said, the last 10-year journey, it is all about that, right? Now, with all that context in picture, still what I see that there is some bare minimum aspect of DevOps that was there, that is there, and that will be there. Now, if I have to divide it, and let's say if somebody has to, let's say, make inroad in this particular field, they should be the primary basebones for them, basics for them. So, for example, if I talk about the comprehensive DevSecOps, which encompasses most of the DevOps practices, that should be there. Beyond that, cost has become a major concern, and then a special vertical around that. FinOps is another one. Uh, Typically, people mix DevOps and SRE, but in my opinion, they are very, very different, completely different mindset. So SRE is another trend or area, right? Uh, of late, observability, and especially I keep on talking with Manoj as well. Observability is altogether a different area, and especially with the advent of open telemetry, this has changed drastically. People used to look observability in various silos, for example, monitoring, logging, tracing, and all those things. But now everything is getting consolidated in one single place. So that is another area. Then a thing that usually people don't treat very important, though it is very, very important, which is middleware and database. People usually think that they are not part of DevOps, but in my humble opinion, they are the most coherent part of DevOps, because these are the areas where the maximum issues happen. And as a DevOps engineer, you have to take that responsibility. So these are the some basic building blocks, or let's say basic trends that will always be there in the market. And as a DevOps engineer, you should always focus on them. Now, is another aspect in terms of application landscape, which a DevOps engineer usually has seen, as Ankush was already saying, that people think about DevOps only about tooling, right? Not about mindset, culture, or let's say the application landscape. Usually people say that, okay, these are the application stuff, we should not bother about it. But the application that you're managing via DevOps, you should understand that lingo, that landscape as well, which means that uh, understanding microservices, serverless construct, edge computing, monolith, because it will not be like this that you will be only working on one solution. Usually it would be some percentage of one aspect, some percentage of one aspect. You should know that what fit well, how to debug all those things. So these two areas, bigger area, form the overall base construct. But then of late, what I have seen, and a lot of people have seen, that there are certain new maturity areas that are popping up, which builds on top of these things. For example, chaos engineering. But obviously, once you have sorted out these two areas, then you will move there. Similarly, hybrid cloud, multi cloud, or migrations, these are another area that you built on top of these areas. Compliance has become very, very important, and especially RBI became very strict, and then another compliance is coming into the picture that has become more important. Similarly, platform engineering, anyways, we are talking about, and a lot of organization has already done significant improvement there. A product company has popped up, and then people are also trying into that. And you don't have to say it, AI and ML ops. This is another area, right? Now there are some new entrants in this area. For example, I think last month we had a session, and I got to hear about sustainable ops. Now, this is something that is people talking about, that you should start talking about sustainable ops. It's not only about spending money or unnecessarily wasting resources. A lot of focus should be there. And I think that credit system and something like that is coming on. Uh, no ops is another area where people are talking about that, okay, can you mature your complete DevOps ecosystem via various tools? Ultimately, you will give a feeling of no ops to the people. Uh, Post corona, another trend that I have seen is that now remote working has become a new norm, which means that the complexity of having remote working, managing accesses, security, and all those things has gone to a different level. That is another area that come into the picture. And then obviously, when you talk about AI and ops, ultimately it will move to the prompt ops or voice ops. Chat ops is anyways there. So that is more like that. These are the new entrant that I see from my perspective. So that's it from my side, Hemant.
Thanks, Sandeep. And so what we can see in future, everything will be ops, right?
Uh, See, in my opinion, things will evolve, right? And people also have to evolve, and you have to go into that direction. So that's how I see things.
Yeah, because now getting merged with ops, and you said it's like chat ops, and we will see other ops. And even that gives me another interesting question: is like working on sustainabilities and the cost optimizations. We have seen a lot of organizations now working optimizing the cost with the help of DevOps. Also, we call it as FinOps. So
Yes, yes.
let's get more insights into that part.
Sure, Hemant. So see, One thing that I have believed very strongly is that singular responsibility principle. That's a design principle. Uh, but what I believe that all those design principles, they are not only limited to programming languages, right? It applies to real life as well. Now, when people talk about FinOps, all the base premises lies that there is nothing like shared responsibility. Ultimately, what used to happen that there was a DevOps team, they have to manage SRE as well, they have to manage build and release and all those things, and cost was also an angle. And that was never a priority. I'll give an example, and I've seen it for a lot of organizations, especially which are into e-commerce domain. There's a trend. So as Diwali enters, all the costs concerns are taken away, and simply there was a mandate that scale infrastructure 3 times, 4 times, right? And we have to somehow make sure that everything runs fine, obviously, because that's the business is more important, right? So 6 months, or let's say 3 or 4 months, this was a cycle. And after 4 months, again focus comes back to cost, saying that okay, let's reduce everything. Now the point is that because there was no owner, nobody was concerned, nobody had that goal. So in my opinion, that's why FinOps came into the picture, that okay, at least somebody should be stakeholder, somebody should be thinking day in and day out, right? uh, Ensuring that costs will remain in check. Now, why we are saying that DevOps should mature, or let's say take up that responsibility as well, because they are ultimately the custodian of your complete infrastructure, and the major cost that you incur is because of that. And obviously there are software practices as well, but then being the custodian, it should be an added responsibility. But again, I should be very clear that it should not be shared responsibility. It should be matlab, dedicated responsibility to a person who will ensure, think day in day out, that what are the possible ways I should save the cost. And that's why FinOps has become very, very important.
A really great perspective, and we understand now the importance of FinOps. So we'll follow this question with the other panelists also here. Yeah, I can see the is okay. Anyone like to go ahead and share their views on top of it?
Yeah, I can talk about it. So, in my opinion, I think the whole DevOps. So first of all, DevOps, I make a practice that I call everyone as a DevOps practitioner, no DevOps engineer, right? It's important. Unfortunately, industry has actually inclined towards this way. Your programming team, your application team should know these practices, but there are carved out different roles and whatnot. It is a skill, right? But anyway, having said that, that's a separate topic of discussion. But in coming to the whole FinOps part, uh, I have a very strong opinion on this, that your architecture is actually responsible for your cost, right? Now, this cannot go in silo. Typically, whenever a company actually wants to cut down their operations cost, which is mostly their engineering cost, which translates that, hey, first of all, we will actually go and we will have all those meetings to reduce your cloud cost. You will see it in your calendar that, hey, we need to reduce this. But the architecture is actually there, because you cannot say that I want to save this component which is running on one particular cloud. You can't just turn it off, because your whole infra and architecture depends on that. So the problems that starts coming in, okay, you have to save this cost, but you cannot actually shut it down. So either now you need to do some kind of a migration, because the RDS that you have spun off is of actually like 2 terabytes of disk, that and you're utilizing 10% of it. I'm just giving an example of it. But now the whole migration part actually starts coming into the picture. So, from a business stakeholder, you are always looking at it. Hey, I want to reduce the cost. Your CFO will be after you that, hey, I want to reduce this cost. But from an engineering perspective, you need to start looking at it. Hey, you need to start looking at it as a very combined thing. So, I am of an opinion that yes, there should be one custodian of it, and there has to be budgets that needs to be carved out for engineering teams and verticals across the org. That's fine. And there, first of all, there has to be a way to give some visibility to that. But who is burning what? Because whenever an architect actually comes into the position and say that we need to deploy this, a lot of these cost calculation has to be done beforehand. so that you can have some kind of a projection at what you are looking at, right? What are the cogs that you are looking at, right? So yeah.
A great insight. And yes, obviously, we need to understand how we can do a scale up and a scale down with respect to the architecture. And if the architecture is not a scalable one, the cost effect will be always be highlighting ones. And they will, in fact, and a beautiful quote generally I take it to people is like if you build a flyover, it doesn't ensure that it will remove the traffic jams. Right, you have to ensure a holistic architecture towards it. Um,
So I would like to add something over here. Okay. So what we have seen from the number of implementation working with the number of companies is the first thing is you cannot fix something and you cannot visualize it. Okay. So one of the biggest problems with the cost and everything is generally one look at it when the bill gets generated at the end of the month. Okay, it becomes a priority for the next 1 week. Okay, and then everyone gets so busy in their day-to-day activities that pile up that okay, this is the most important task, this is the priority task and everything, that the cost optimization or something always probably fall in the middle or in the low priority range unless and until that becomes a top priority from the management itself. Okay, in number of cases what we have seen is if there is someone like Sandeep said, if there is a one person who is just responsible, so by responsible that means he is the person who just have to look at visually and either go back to their engineering manager or to their DevOps manager and ask them like a few questions that why the cost is high or why this is that. Okay, and to prioritize that, probably you would be saving 20 to 30% at least in the cloud cost. That's what we have seen just with someone who is a responsible person or having proper alerts which can send everyday alert to your Slack, to your teams, that okay, this is the cost for every day, so that at least you get an idea whenever there is a discrepancy of more than 10-20%, you at least get a clear visibility onto that.
Yes, and this is really a beautiful part, and I like that word. Like what comes after end of the month, and it becomes highlighted for 1 week, and then becomes a low priority. Since if it is not related to the finances of the individual side, and I would like to get into the single responsibility principle here also, right? And that if we combine it, it will be really helpful to how we can go ahead and reduce the cost. And I believe Prakash and Neha will also have some more insights to give us. Over to you,
Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
go
Prakash.
next. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Prakash, you can take up.
okay, thank you. Yes, back in the days when we had VMs allocated to each of the projects that were in the organizations, it was fairly easier to sort of figure out what project is incurring what sort of cost. But now that we have shifted towards microservices architecture and we have like a single Kubernetes cluster which is used across multiple projects and teams, it becomes difficult to sort of charge back to the team the cost that they are incurring on the infrastructure part. There are tools which are there, but organizations have started using those tools to figure out what sort of costs are being incurred by these projects on the infrastructure front, but it's not prevalent throughout all the organizations. And slowly they'll realize that they have to ultimately make each project owners the custodian of the costs that they are incurring on the infrastructure and on the daily basis, was rightly said in the previous comments. And then finally, when they become the custodians of their infrastructure cost, is when they will start realizing and they'll start optimizing on that front.
Yeah, so I'll go next, and in addition to what everybody said, I think for me it looks like that this whole cost optimization, while could be responsibility of a single team where there is a FinOps team and then has to preferably taking care of all the cost optimizations, or probably come up with the numbers of what needs to be cost optimized and what is there. I think this is in general a common responsibility, or for all the engineers in general. Because see, in my overall tenure so far, the problems that I have faced, or or the usual observation that I have felt is, it is it is a bad architectural decision that you have taken ultimately, right? Let's say. And sometimes I would not say that it is a bad decision. Sometimes the moment when you start an application, right, at the very start the requirement is as such because you just wanted to present an MVP, right? And the moment you want to present an MVP, you'll always come up with one single resource. You can ship it fast, you can actually deliver it fast, so you don't want to have like 10, 20 different components to it. So like what we in general do in delivery, we do some unit economics. So that's where I think FinOps also will come into picture, where at a very component level, at a very granular level, we usually have weekly reports, right? Monthly reports as to what the cost is. Every single component, every single service, every single pod vertical, what cost they are actually incurring. That also helps us understand, let's say, the application that I'm working on, or the application that I own, is generally an application. I basically take care of the complete dispatch management and delivery, which is last mile, let's say, for example, which has the major transactions in terms of RDS, right? Now there the usual IOP cost is too high. But now, to understand what the IOPS cost is, you have to actually engineer it. You have to also understand why my IOPS are taking too high, right? Let's say my IOPS are going beyond 40K. When I say 40, it's 40K, right? Now I know that there are certain optimization that can be done at an engineering level, where can actually put it down to 10,000, or let's say 15,000. It will ultimately give you a like huge cost difference. And I'll, if just to tell you in the numbers, it could be more than 50%, right? So it's a function of both the teams. And I would like to break it into three stages. At a very start, when you are actually coming up with the design, and you actually ship any application, you actually develop any application and make it live for the first time. For the initial few times, your resources will be very vague. I mean, when I say vague, I would say that when you start an application, you just start with minimum sometimes, right? So that is also as per your understanding. Sometimes people start with very minimum. Sometimes people don't understand what to actually provide as a resource. And let's say they have taken a 2x large database, right, which actually is not required. And then over the period of time, let's say 6 months later, year later, you see the scale, your scale has grown up, right? Now maybe that instance that you have taken is already fulfilling your requirement, or maybe you need to scale it. Or maybe now 1 year down the line, which also will answer some way in the question that has been asked on the YouTube, that how do you feel about too much dynamic state these days? See, whenever you develop something, 5 years down the line, 3 years down the line, everything will look stale. Not only from a technology perspective, also from a perspective of the code. So if I talk about applications only, there is so much that gets accumulated in the past 3 years or 2 years or 2.5 years, that when you see it 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, you think that it is legacy. You need to rewrite it, or you need to re-engineer it. So I think that will always come into picture. How soon you do it will actually depend upon the use cases. So I would rather say, keep some tech debts, keep evolving it over a period of time, and not do it like 5 years later, where you have such a huge mammoth to actually clean up that you don't find time in your BAUs and other stuffs. But this cost function is actually part of both FinOps and engineering, in my opinion, because that's where the uh, underlying design actually becomes a culprit of increasing your cost sometimes, and me being a direct impactors of the e-commerce market that Sandeep was talking about. Because I know whenever there is an e-com sale, big billion sale, I do a strong peak planning for about 15 to 20 days, and just to come up with an answer that I need to now move my RDS to, let's say, 3x, just because I know my overall load will become 3x, right? So I think there when you actually take decisions that how you want to move further, and actually cut down on your engineering side of design decisions also, that maybe RDS is not fitting my use case, I should probably move to DDB, I mean DynamoDB, or both aren't fitting my use case, I should go to maybe Mongo because that's a different use case altogether. All of that. Yeah.
Really great insights, and it helps us to understand like we need to go ahead and evolve, and even the coding, the languages and the technologies are also changing day by day. How we should be going ahead in a constant way, so we improvise and we are not making our code too much legacy code, right? And leverage new technologies, new strengths, which will be always be a cost optimized one, and it can help but to leverage the better of the compute. Now, with this leveraging part, we understand like AI is the future and it is automating everything. Um, Previously, we're looking at into like what can be the possible use cases of AI. Nowadays, every one of us is using AI in their day-to-day life. No matter it will be like the phones which are coming with AI enabled, or it's the our laptops which has AI enabled. We have co-pilots and other things, and it's like ChatGPT and DeepSeeks, which are going and more evolving the models also. Now, working with DevOps also, we have lots of routine tasks, and we discussed few of the things how we can go ahead and leverage the ML parts into the DevOps previously. Now, what all the things we should be looking at with the DevOps to go ahead and leverage AI so that it can make the life of a DevOps engineer easy, and how it can help with the team, right? And the workflow, the complete DevOps life cycle that comes into picture to go ahead and ensure it is fully automated. We get better insights, and it makes systems much better and efficient. And with this, I like to get the answers and more insights from on this from Prakash.
All right. Okay. So thank you first of all for giving this opportunity to me to answer this, because I have in my current capacity being involved in a lot of product designing around Devtron product itself, which takes care of your entire software delivery life cycle. So I would like to answer the question taking one step at a time, right? So starting from whenever a developer checks in their code in a Git repository, uh, a CI system would automatically sense that and then start building the code altogether, right? But let's say if I was to implement AI into this, I would rather build the code only when it is required. So it doesn't make any sense to build a code if a comment has been added, right? If a README has been added to a particular repository, it does not make any sense to sort of create an entire image from that particular commit. So AI can be implemented over here, wherein it aids and takes calls when exactly it is actually required to build the codes in cases wherein you have an automatic trigger for your pipelines, which generally we have in lower environments. And there are a lot of commits which are coming in throughout the day from multiple developers, and not every time it is required to actually build the image, because it may be as simple as a comment, right? It may be as simple as a README has been added to the repository itself. So these kind of things can be done, and of course it will bring down your infrastructure cost, because you're building the image on a particular infrastructure. You may be building multi-architecture images, so you may be bringing multiple nodes for that particular reason, and it further brings down the load on your CI/CD system as well. Then talking about deployments part, or maybe first I'll talk about the configuration management, right? So let's say that some developer was doing a lot of configuration changes, and for some reason or in error, they have done a configuration changes in a particular environment. They were not anticipated to do those changes in, right? Developers may have accesses to multiple environments on which they may not be required, but Of course, this should be resolved in the first place by giving minimum accesses to the developers. But let's say someone had the accesses of a production as well as a non-prod, and instead of doing the configuration changes in the non-prod environment, they did some configuration changes in the prod environment. And then when the deployment happened, all the configuration changes were also propagated to the production. Right? So these kind of things can be actually prevented, wherein certain AI mechanisms could be put in, wherein it detects the changes, whether they were actually deliberate, uh, uh, because they can be compared against other environments as well. Because generally, if you are doing a configuration change in production, you'll first do it in a non-production environment, right? So the AI can do those comparisons, do those diff checks, and let you know exactly if these, or at least prompt the user that these are the changes which you might want to recheck, because they are not existing in your non-production environments, right? So those mechanisms can be put in to prevent accidental sort of config changes as well. Then once you have done the deployments, of course, you're doing a blue, green, canary, whatever you're doing it. But let's say the deployments didn't go well, right? And you may have like a SLO based rollback in place, which can detect, okay, if I'm getting more 5xx after a certain deployment, I have to roll back. But what if there are scenarios wherein you are not able to get those metrics as well, right? Then it may be a temporary disconnect from the metric server, from your, because of which you are not able to fetch those metrics, and then you need to take a call whether to do the rollback or not. I would not give the entire lever to the AI to take a call to do a rollback or not. But I can what AI can do here is they can assist the operator to take certain actions, right? So they can tell, okay, there is a temporary disconnect from the Prometheus server, because of which I'm not able to get the metrics from the Prometheus, and this may be a temporary disconnect from the server, and these are the stats of the Prometheus, or and you can either resolve the Prometheus server if it is self-hosted and then take a call, or you can go ahead and just do a rollback as well, right? So those kind of scenarios may occur wherein your SLO-based rollbacks are may not properly work, and in those cases, AI can further assist you to take a decision. So those can be some areas wherein I feel that a lot of things can be done via AI. If you talk about environment provisioning and all, I think AI would be an overkill for that, because it can be easily done using templatization, and there are products in the market or platforms in the market which are already enabling you to do that. That includes Defcon product itself, wherein you can bring up ephemeral environments as and when needed, and then you can go ahead and destroy all the ones. For staging and your permanent environments, such as your staging and production, you already have templates that you can use across. So AI would be an overkill, but yes, any sort of configuration promotions that needs to be done, that can be AI assisted. Wherein I recently took an example wherein I said that most of the configuration that go in production are also propagated from your lower environment. So AI can help you take that decision that whether these configurations have been promoted from the lower environment or have been maybe accidentally added to your production directly. So I would end my comment over here.
Thanks, Pakas. Really great insights on where we can go ahead and leverage the AI and where we should not be leveraging, and what can help. Really insightful. Now I have a question. It might be a bit of sci-fi or something. Let's say if we automate everything, can we go ahead with something like no ops?
Uh, but you will still need the knowledge behind all those applications, all those standard tool sets that you're using within the system, the infrastructure that you're using. So that knowledge needs to be there in a platform, and I guess that's what we call the platform engineering, right? The IDPs. So these knowledge and DevOps practices are baked into these IDPs, baked into these platform, and then finally there will be a day wherein there will be no ops, but the platform will exist.
Yeah, we understand. Thanks, that is a great insight. Let's ask our fellow panelists also about
So,
this. What do you,
so
Sandeep? Yeah.
So I'll just give a classic example, right? So if you take example of GitOps, right? This is a classic example of no ops, because when you talk about no ops, which means that nobody's involved. Or GitOps is all about no ops. You commit your code and your code will get deployed into production system. No operations needed at all. But as Prakash rightly said that to achieve that no ops, you have to do a lot of heavy lifting, which will be done by platform team, engineering team, or whatsoever. But yes, no ops is where you want to go, but then it has to be enabled.
Yeah. To summarize, can I say it's like a North Pole where everyone is deciding to go ahead?
so
One of
I
the
would
north,
say,
one of the
yeah.
north pole.
So
Yeah.
I would say that what no ops is to one team is actually a whole engineering to other team, right?
Yes.
So the abstraction that looks like, I don't know, it works like magic. Let it be like magic, but that's a
Yes.
full-time job of another engineering, right? How they do it, that's the part of their process.
Great
Um,
insights. And,
just to add to it, I guess the thing that I was talking about in my previous conversation, that the no ops will become legacy if there is no ops. So I think
yes.
after, yeah, I mean the no ops will actually become legacy after, let's say, 2 years down the line, if you don't have an operational team working on that no ops. So for that no ops to keep no upping, you actually need somebody sitting at the background and keep doing an engineering behind the scene. Otherwise, it will
Yes.
also
Great.
become stale at some point of time.
Great insights. And I especially like the word like if there's no ops, no ops will also become a legacy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Uh,
fair. I mean,
and
the way the world has evolving these days. I mean, I am being a part of it, where every 6 months down the line, I actually encounter something new coming in the market, and then I see that, okay, what I was doing 6 months back was has actually become old and legacy. So you don't do anything to no ops, and then you'll see that somebody will have something new coming in. So yeah.
yep. Ankush, will you like to add anything here?
No, I agree with everyone. Obviously, to achieve a no ops, you need to have another, like a kind of a big engineering team who is consistently thinking, okay, to make it a no ops. And like any tool or something, right, to sustain, to be in the market, to provide an edge, you have to keep it consistent. You have to keep building in, okay, and that's where probably the IDPs are heading, okay. So that's so I would say that's a first step in the overall direction. It would take a couple of years, okay, or maybe even more than that, to maybe even try to touch that North Pole, right? So everyone is trying that. The time would tell, because the AI and everything is expanding at such a faster pace or something, that everyone would have to adapt every 6 months to these new changes. What you are building today, 6 months down the line, you might think that, okay, the AI has solved it already, even in a no code platforms as well, right? So one has to keep evolving. You have to try to be ahead of that curve, and probably in next couple of years we will see where one heads to, okay. So the journey is very long for this right now.
Perfectly in line with you. And obviously, we all have a same vision here, like everything, yes, it will be a or no poll. And now we understand what is DevOps, DevSecOps, and a platform engineering. We saw how the AI can help it and what the future, what we are trying to AI implement, where we can go ahead in not, and how we can go ahead and make it like a no ops. Now let's get more futuristic, a wild justice statements like 5 years from now, where the DevOps will go ahead. What AI infusion in DevOps can be there for 2030, right? And just to be for our audience and the panelists, everything, we're just it is an imaginary question like what it can go ahead. We don't want to save bet. Let's go big here. Let's see what the future can be there in an ideal way. How DevOps and AI merger will take it, whether to no ops or something or more big. And since changing is a only constant that we see from DevOps, I would like, and this was more told by Neha. So I'd like to ask this question from Neha first.
Yeah. So I want to take this and consider this, that I want to build systems and intelligent automation automated systems which are self-healing primarily. So while I say self-healing, what I meant here is that I want to build systems, and how I see this 20, 30, or maybe 5 years down the line, that let's say if there is a production issue, my system has sufficient data and sufficient automated scripts which it can take up and do some automations on top of it, so that the production issue previously maybe taking let's say 30 minutes or an hour or 2 hours to resolve can be done in 5 minutes. It can take more decision makings basis your data driven, the analytics that you pull from logs, the analytics that you pull from different matrices across CloudWatch matrix, your RDS matrix, and understand the pattern of a system. Let's say the usual pattern of the system says that my IOPS went down in during the night. My system is basically does not see any traffic, but morning peak hours it sees traffic, right? Let's say there is a DDoS attack happening. My usual traction in the system is, let's say, 20 calls per day, or let's say 20,000 calls per day. But today, anonymously, I'm receiving 1 lakh calls per day, right? My system should be in a capacity to actually behave and start putting off limits without me getting into an intervention, or without anybody actually getting into an intervention. And then, well, I'm not saying that the whole process will not have any human interaction to it. It will. There could be approvals to it, there could be different stages to it, but then there are few level of decisions that the system can automate. So for me it more looks like that 5 years down the line I would be in a situation, and I would want to be in a situation where my systems could self heal. The disaster recoveries could be more easier for me if I'm actually looking at a system, and if I'm building something in a development environment, then my system could self identify and predict that, okay, in the production environment, if let's say you are saying that your development environment has the underlying infrastructure of, let's say, XYZ, then probably in your production environment, because you are giving me an input, there could be a system where we can just give the inputs that my production load will be XYZ or ABC. Then the production environment, the whole underlying infrastructure will be designed in such a fashion, or will be actually created in a certain fashion. So for example, my auto scaling of instances can be automated, right? If let's say if there is some CPU utilization which is actually hitting 80% or 90%, that will eventually, and the trend is not going for the past 5 minutes, and that will eventually impact my production system. I would literally want those intelligent automators to actually understand the pattern and then quickly upgrade to a next instance with some blue green deployment or something. So that is where from I am looking at it from a larger perspective. While human intervention is required to write those scripts, there will be very data driven decisions in general. There will be an organizational shift, if I may talk about. So while I'm saying organizational shift, more and more organizations will start focusing on the past data, the historical data, and then will take decisions basis that, okay, this is what the data is predicting in general as a behavior. Let's say the example that Sandeep was talking about, that during the peak times we end up scaling our systems, and then most of the times I've identified that the peak time has gone. The peak time is actually the time of, let's say, maximum to a month or 15 to 20 days. But then people eventually forget to downscale the systems for the next 1 month. And that actually incurs cost for extra 1 month. And it is just because there are a couple of other priorities going on, right? Other BAUs going on, and we end up usually don't downscale the systems because that's a manual intervention or that's a human thing that you have to do. Now, while the systems can be trained in such a fashion that I know that before peak, this was the load, this is the duration that the systems needed an auto scaling. After peak, the load has actually come down or mellowed down to the previous load. Now the automation scripts will actually kick in and then actually downscale the system on the off hours or the non-traffic times. So this is what I wanted to contribute in terms of where I see the systems, let's say 5 years down the line, that there could be innovations and there could be major interventions around whatever now I take as a decision. Let's say I see there is a DDoS happening, I take a call that okay, let's put WAF there. I want the system to do it with some analysis, and I'm not saying to do it like completely where it can take all the decision that I used to take, but can still have a suggestion and an bare minimum addition to it, and then a major calls can be still taken by the team members and the rest of it. So yeah, I think I would want to end it here because whatever I'll build it is around this only, and for me this is how I want to build an intelligent automation system with a very much self decision making and self healing capability.
Thanks, ma'am. This was wonderful with the insights. Like we can have a self-healing systems. They are more in predictive analysis, and they just take just inputs. Okay, I want to do this or that, and do it for us. Yes, that is kind of the features, but I think this is something interesting questions which I would like every one of our panelists to give their thoughts to it. We can start with Sandeep.
Okay, I'll try to give a very interesting answer. So I am an Iron Man fan, and when I saw that question, a specific scene from Iron movie came into my mind where Iron Man was talking to Jarvis, right, and he was building his suit. So he was not doing all that basic stuff. And let's say when he was building 30th version of his suit, the knowledge Jarvis already had that knowledge, and Tony Stark doesn't have to remember all that stuff, right? Now he has to think about the newer problems. So what I see or how I see it in 2030 is that probably I would like to have something like Jarvis. Earlier we used to do pair programming, right? I should pair program with an AI assistant or agent where I'll start conversing that okay, I have to develop an, as Neha said that I want to develop an application, and then a system will say that okay, what sort of e-commerce application or let's say a tech or whatsoever a chat tech. So these are the patterns. Which pattern do you think? What is the scale? So a lot of interaction, let's say requirement gathering. So I will be giving my requirement, right? And then agent behind the scene will be assisting me that okay, this is what you should do. I will write this code for you. I'll deploy it. Somebody said in chat as well that okay, system will be automatically deploying. So uh, I would be primarily talking to AI system in terms of thoughts, and my thoughts will be implemented by that AI system. That's what I envision.
Yes, something really insightful. We'll move to Prakash to get more insights, and then we will summarize all the insights, right?
Sure. So for me, what Neha mentioned is already existing in today's space. So we already have auto scaling mechanisms that can work on top of what kind of loads you are getting on your application side. The triggers are already there, configured, and the systems are capable to auto scale themselves. Right? But I would want to go to a level wherein I don't have to tell that these sort of automations need to be put in. And let's say that something went wrong with a particular node or with a particular VM, it's automatically able to create those automation scripts to do those actions and implement that automation script in the clusters itself. So I would want to go to that level using AI, wherein I don't have to actually do those minuscule tasks such as putting in cluster autoscaler in each cluster, and then setting the calibrating the thresholds according to my use cases, and then figuring out if those thresholds are appropriate for the particular workloads or not. And then, so I would want uh, AI to auto tune these resources, these thresholds for us. So when we talk about SREs, there are a lot of thresholds that need to be configured for all sort of alert rules that are there, right? So I want the automation systems to be able to take active decisions on top of this, so that we are able to prevent the outages that otherwise would have occurred if these thresholds were not tightened, if these thresholds were not optimized according to the workloads or the current demand. So that's where I would want to go using AI.
Great insight. We'll move to Jati to get more what his thoughts are here.
So I think a lot of the things that we would really want, but if you look at the journey that will look like from 2025 to 2030, right now, if you and I can give an analogy of how airplanes have actually evolved, right? If you think about it, this whole autopilot kind of a thing still exists in a very critical system like airplanes, right? And it, but there is always a pilot that is actually there, but a lot of decision making is actually done by the autopilot, right? Of flying the plane, and you need to be just aware about it. So to reduce the cognitive load part of it. Now coming back to the engineering part of what we folks deal with, right now in today's times, a lot of these agentic things have got introduced, like Kubernetes based agent. They will identify your errors and prescribe you that probably you can do this. They can actually take, like, hey, based on your input, they can go ahead and actually take a decision for you as well. 2030, we see the maturity of these systems so that they have that ability to it. Now, the first important aspect right now to this is these agents are very expensive to actually do this, because, as I said, a lot of compliance kind of things comes into the picture, where you cannot actually send these things outside of your infrastructure perimeter because of the security. So those things has to be deployed. So the cost will automatically reduce. So your ability to have your internal agents that can be deployed in your own infra, so that you have this ability for your operations team, your L1, L2 support, right? Those can be actually mitigated and can be taken care by your agents and take those decisions on your behalf, which were being done earlier by engineers, right? So this is what, with the journey, the evolution of the whole AI, the models that are actually coming up, the cost that is actually decreasing of using it and running them is also decreasing. So yes, but right now we still have this fear that, can I give that access to my production system? Not really. You don't know what's gonna go now. But lower environment, all right, I can experiment, but I still would like to have that control with me, that hey, before I press, somebody presses that button, you need to be really sure about it. Maybe 2020 down the line, if we have that, those models become very mature, uh, they should be able to do it. Yeah, more from a meta perspective, that what actually we would like to see it down the line.
Yes, I perfectly agree with you, Jati, here, and what we can see. And like now, here from Ankush, what his thoughts are.
Okay. So I want my prediction to be wrong, first of all. Okay. So my prediction is by 2030, 60 to 70% of the work that anyone is doing today would be replaced by the AI and all. Okay. So first thing is that, okay, someone has to prepare for those things, that okay, that eventually there would be specific models For example, if we talk about our industry, there would be specific models which would be probably just for the DevOps, and they would be mature enough that they would be able to take 60 to 70% of the workload that is repetitive, taken care completely. I would take one example. Right now, there are kind of n number of teams in every company whose only work is just to monitor the systems, right? They are there that okay, the system should always be healthy. It should be continuously monitored. If there are issues or something, they go to a knowledge base, they see, and they put a fix for it. Okay. In case that it's complicated or something, then it goes to an L2, L3, and so on and all, right? So if in a bare minimum example, the system probably would be capable enough to handle at least at the L2 level things, right? That's where the automation would probably reach. The other example would be, let's suppose, say someone, they know that okay, the industry that they operate in, they want to have like a SOC 2 compliance from a day zero, right? All they need to do is they put it into the system beforehand that okay, anything that gets deployed needs to be a SOC 2 compliant. Okay, and then the system would take care from the day zero that either it does not allow anything to get created which is not SOC 2 compliant. Even from writing code, you would have agents in your version control systems, right, in your VS code and all, right, that while you are writing that code or everything, they would analyze it that okay, whether that actually has some vulnerability or that would breach some kind of a compliance or something that kind of set standards and all, and that would be taken care. And again, this is obviously again the kind of a peer programming, right, where you have given some specific instructions to AI agent like Sandeep mentioned, right? You have a kind of Jarvis, a Jarvis for your own company, where you have just set certain standards, certain OPAs that okay, this is the policies that we want to enforce our entire organization and everything, which would be customizable as per every organization, and it would set that standard. That's it. That's what my prediction looks like for 2030.
To thank everyone has a great insights of the presentations, and we can see lot of efficiencies, optimizations, and automations to become features. Maybe we can go ahead to the no ops, or it can be like the co-pilots, and we had a lot of interesting chats the audience are doing. Also, there are also lots of things, and even like L1, L2, L3 can be merged to a single team or something. Yes, but it's future. We don't know, and there can be a lot of things for the audience who want to get more insights, and they say okay what it can be. Feel free to put this into the more comments here, and thanks everyone. Now we'll move ahead to another interesting question, right? Since we know like the technology is fast evolving and changing, and there can be a lot of efficiencies optimizations from career perspectives, like there might be some jobs which exist today might not exist tomorrow, but they can be, but this also give opportunities for some of the new jobs to come up into picture, right? Let's say because AI ML, if you see there are a lot of now jobs, and even like with prompt engineering we are seeing a lot of jobs coming into the picture now. In the time travel banner itself, let's say in 2030, what should be the DevOps title that doesn't exist today can be critical in the AI driven world, and what should our professionals start learning today to ensure they can go ahead and keep pace with rapid career growth, and have a better career opportunities and future. With this, I would like to get more thoughts for in here from Jaddeep.
Yeah. So in terms of title, I think like let's just keep it software engineer. Let's just not make it very complicated. Software engineer sounds good. I think everything what AI is also part of a software. So let's just keep it simple. I don't know if a fancy title suits in. We can plug that. But for now, at top of my head, that is software. I think I mean, of course, a lot of fundamentals of software, I think we should actually do this because people, if you see, right, software folks actually transition into this whole, got into the culture of DevOps practices, and then they came into this whole SREs and platform engineering, right? I mean, of course, I'll give the answer that what should it look in 2030. But if you join those dots, they were software engineers and then got into platform engineering and reliability engineering. Unfortunately, the you know everyone thought that, hey, if I just I'm a YAML engineer and I actually qualify to be an SRE, is a very wrong kind of a perception, right? Let's say, because you need to think yourself as a software guy who can write code. Uh, that's super important. Those fundamentals are great because an engineer who is transitioning from pure software to multiple streams, right? They have a lot of empathy towards that, towards to the line of work that they are doing. Coming back to this whole AI part, of course, there were folks who were learning how web development used to happen, how REST used to happen. But now, overall, we'll start seeing that people are now becoming, engineers who can actually build AI agents, right? That is a skill that will actually start coming in, and I see folks are actually picking up. So, if you think from a very particular skill set, I think that's a one good skill to actually acquire and learn that how do you actually build them. You understand the nuances, the nitty gritties of it. A lot of your frameworks have actually start coming into this. Example, LangChain, Llama Index, or a lot of these frameworks are coming in. How do you utilize them? How are you able to create applications on top of it? I think somebody asked on that, hey, with the models that are actually coming up, what do you see the state? So, on, if you look at it, all of us are actually consumers of these models, right? We need to identify what is the application or a business problem that we are able to cater. That's how personally I look at it. Like my code actually going into production and somebody using it is more high for me rather than I'm actually trying to fine tune which model that I should be learning. I think let's actually look at it from that perspective. But somebody has an interest that what kind of a model that they want to go into. That's a very deep research thing, right? So there you will have to build up your set of skills along that line. But somebody who is more on the consumer side, what are the business problem and business use cases that you can introduce? So try to actually look at those kind of companies who are actually working right now a lot on the agentic AIs, and they are right now in a lot of industries. Uh, right. In fact, banks also have started to get and onboard this. We would not expect because they are very late bloomers, but I've seen that a lot of banks have also started to come up with this. So there's a lot of diversification of the industries who have actually started to adopt to. Right? But there will be a common set of common denominator and common set of skills that we will learn it. Yeah.
Thanks, Eddie. This was really insightful. And what is this? Maybe I like to get views from other panelists also. Ankush, will like to add something here? Ankush, you are on mute.
So yeah, I guess he's right on the part that yes, let's keep the name as simple. That is because everything is a software engineering only at the end of the day, right? The only thing that I would like to add is that okay, one should uh, try to adopt AI as much as possible. Okay, it's not about understanding that how AI works or how we can build a model because that's not for everyone to do. But for everyone, what should be there is that how to use those things. Okay, in your day-to-day life and whatever the work they are doing, and if you are on top of that and if you are learning to use it along with whatever you are doing in a day-to-day life today and adapting it in your work, then probably it's a safe thing. Okay, and probably it would increase your outputs by 2x 3x or something. So again, like peer, kind of in a peer programming, if you are a programmer, right, there are tools available today as well. If you take help out of it, it just helps in terms of your productivity by 20-40% today, and it would continue to increase with time as those assistants and something becomes better. That's it.
Yes, perfectly in line with you. Uh, here to get his insights. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Hemant, you are asking anybody from panelists can answer this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think I was asking to Prakash, but it seems he's having some audio issues. Maybe Sandeep, you can go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, or Prakash, you want to talk first?
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't catch that properly. But yes, uh, by 2030, I would say that the DevOps roles will look very different from what they are now. Ideally, I would want the DevOps role, a DevOps engineer to be obsolete by then, is what I think that should happen. And the DevOps, anyways, was not meant as a role. It was always a culture which was meant to be propagated and buried deep within the veins of all the software engineers. And engineering is kind of doing that now. So in future, I would be seeing the roles such as DevOps roles are replaced by platform engineers who are responsible for ensuring that they are able to the developers are able to deliver values to the user faster, smarter, and more reliably, ensuring there are no sort of outages, and outages, if there are any, are they are able to recover from them very easily and very efficiently and fastly. So that would be sort of my take on how the DevOps roles would be by 2030.
Thanks, Prakash. Let's move to Sandeep for to hear his thoughts.
Sure, sure. Uh, uh, Before I answer this question, I just want to categorically say that uh, it doesn't matter that for what job, at least I am hiring people. There are four basic tenets that I look into the people. One is whether they are hardworking, whether they are sincere, whether they take ownership, and whether they have street smartness. If a person has all those four qualities, really doesn't matter to me where that person stands. I have confidence that person will do whatever that needs to be done. Now coming back to the answer for this 2030, uh, uh, if I want to answer it in one sentence or in one line, I'll say that probably a person who has a capability of design thinking in collaboration with AI. This is what probably the one liner statement that I will hire. But I will totally agree with what Jadeep has mentioned. And this is an inherent problem that I have seen. So what has happened that a lot of, let's say, orchestra or let's say rappers have built. Now people only have knowledge of those rappers. I'll give classic example of Kubernetes. Everybody is Kubernetes expert, but what do we mean by that? They are able to write YAMLs. They don't know how Kubernetes work, how system works, how they interact. Now the thing is that when everything works fine, it works fine. But on the bad day, uh, then it is your real ground knowledge that helps you out, right? So whatsoever it be, you should have very clear conceptual knowledge, and then you can use whatsoever you want to use to excel in your career. But the ground basic core concepts knowledge is very, very important. That's it from my side.
Thanks, Sandeep. And I really like your thoughts. What should people should look out for their careers if they have these four parameters that's can help them to get into a job easily. We'll go to Neha to ask the same question, like what she would be looking ahead into 34 about the careers perspective.
I think I'll
So seems she's having some network issues. Maybe we'll move it to something up another question, smart, since we're just running out of time. Like Sandeep, you have already answered this question, but still I want to ask further. Like, if you have to hire a AI DevOps team today, what are the top skills you will be looking ahead, so that it will give more insight to our audience what the skills they should be really focusing on. And maybe we can start with Jaddeep. Yeah?
Okay, so I will not. So I mean, basically, my hiring ways, I usually look for people with right attitude. What I think Sandeep mentioned is because I value will more than the skill part. Because right now, in terms of skills, that even if you talk about, I think if you're good with one programming language, you're coming from a software background, and you have a decent acumen, you will be able to pick the jobs. It is just the your ability to get an exposure to a problem, right? Now, as I think we have already discussed in the panel, that if there are problems, you can try to solve it. I'll just give you an example. Right, last year we wanted to solve some hiring problem because I own the hiring part, right? And we said that I want to self-host LLMs. I know it was very long shot. I said I want to self-host and do this. Of course, it is expensive, but I understand the nuances, what it takes to actually build those components to get more visibility. This was me as an engineer, and out of my curiosity, I tried to do this and got like one smart intern who worked with it, and he did not have any idea. We were on ground zero on that day, right? But again, this is for more experimental phase. But somebody who, a company that is actually more AI towards inclined towards AI, I think Python as a programming language is heavily wasted. That I have seen a lot of frameworks are actually coming there. So at least get that first, and then identify and try to learn some of these frameworks and what's actually happening, right? Ulama and LangChain, these are the set of tools that folks are using. LangGraph, that people are using and utilizing it. Uh, the other problem with them is that it's very hard to keep up the pace with them because they are evolving day in day out. So even a patch version that changes, it starts actually breaking things because everybody is actually rushing. In a month, you will see multiple models coming out, and frameworks changing. So it's a bit hard to keep up the pace with it. But once you are in the ecosystem of it, you kind of develop your own mental model. So
Yes, a great insights, and maybe we can move to Ankush here to add his thoughts.
Okay, yeah. So I think Sandeep has already put it very right because everyone over here, I guess, has an experience hiring for number of positions and everything, right? I guess one of the top skills that anyone looks for is someone who can actually solve the problem. So obviously, to solve up on a problem, they need to be street smart. They need to be good with logical and reasoning skills and all, right? And like we mentioned, the way things are moving forward, everyone has to keep learning new things, new technologies and everything, right? So you cannot come up with just the experience of one programming language or something and do that, right? So anyone who has that problem solving skills, eager to learn, okay, new things, they would probably would be good at any job or something that you would put them in, whether that is in programming, whether that is in business area, any area that you would put in, they can kind of an excel. And that's what I guess any of us sitting over here, any of the leaders look forward to in any of the candidates we are hiring as of today.
Thanks, Ankush. I think this is all the summation that we have, and we like to get more thoughts from Prakash here.
Yeah. So I think my criteria for selection of any candidate would not very much change. Just two things would change. So the candidate should be keen to learning how AI works and implementing how AI in wherever applicable regions we have. So they should be open to use AI, implement AI, and train the models according to the use cases. So those are the skills that I would want the candidate to have. And then straightforward, one thing that I would not want the candidate to do would be using AI to appear in an interview. So that would be something that I would want the candidate not to do, using AI for the interview. Apart from that, yes, these would be the criteria.
So this brings me one of the top comment from Vikas, like, will you hire AI agents instead of humans? And yes, obviously, interviews we like not to humans coming, but with much of AI, right?
Uh,
And yeah, Prakash, you would like to add
You
something
don't
here?
you don't really need to hire an AI agent, right? Uh, uh, you can build your own, right? So if I were to use an AI agent instead of human, I would build my
Thanks for those insights. We'll move to Neha. Welcome back. I think so. Now, Neha, we were talking about like what are the skills that people should be looking at in the future, and what are the key skills that you will look at to hire them.
Sure. I mean, what I in general right now also look at people is what recently started looking at is skills is something that, and tech is something, probably engineering, something that you can still bring in people and then make them learn, but then right set of attitude, that is something which is lacking in general. So if you get right set of candidates who themselves have that hustle and keen eagerness to learn and keep changing, keep understanding what's going in the market, what's changing in the market, I think that's the only thing that I in general look at. Even in future going forward, I will continue to look at people who have the right set of attitude to actually make things work. I don't want people in general who probably know a lot more, but then do not have the right intent to work on certain things. So I think that's a that I now want and will continue to want, along with uh, AI will also keep changing. There will be something new, let's say 10, 5 years down the line, which will keep coming in addition to AI. So that eagerness to keep learning. And while that there was a question, will we hire AI agents instead of human? No, I will rather want AI agents to take the initial interviews and then just do the first round of filtering, and then the rest I'll do. So I would rather want AI agents to do those interviews and not my candidates to be the AI agents in that case.
Instead of hiring the AI agents, the AI agents will hire humans. We can say
So
that.
why not also just reduce your burden of taking interviews also at some point of time?
Yes, and even we
That's a
see there are
smart. Yeah.
there are a lot of
Pardon?
organizations who have already taken business steps for the hiring perspective. And this was really insights like, and for all our audience, what I can summarize to them, it says like, it's your soft skills that matters, and they will not get changed over the time. You have, and you will be hired based on those itself, the soft skills and your attitude. And it's not the technology. Technologies will come and go, and they will become legacy. But the things which will make you will be your soft skills. And I believe everyone will be agreeing to this. Thanks a lot, everyone here. We have covered fancy insights on AI in DevOps and a lot of things about the careers, how we should be going ahead. We covered about automation, platform engineering, career shifts, and future of the software delivery. Before we wind up, we can just go ahead, each one of you, a small line, a sentence, how you liked about it, from feedback that you want to share, and what is exciting for you. Maybe we can start from Ankush here.
Sorry, I missed the question. Can you just repeat again once?
The question is just a final thought before we wind up. What excites you about AI DevOps and any feedback that you like to share?
Okay. No, I guess it was in a great discussion. It was in a good learning from the other members who are a part of this circle itself. And just to conclude, obviously, we will see how the AI is revolving. It's obviously revolving at a much faster pace. And let's see what the future holds for everyone.
Thanks, Ankush. Moving to Neha.
Thank you for inviting. And I think I would want to be part of this call again with all the same leaders in 2030 and understand what actually AI has done.
Sure.
And whatever predictions we made today has actually proven to be correct 2030.
We should keep it yearly so that everyone can track the progress year on year.
I think Ankush rightly said we should keep it early and understand how we are evolving.
That's a great thought. And Jadip, we'll move to you.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thank you so much for actually inviting. It was really great to know to be with the tribe and understand what they are doing and how they're, because software as a domain is really wide, right? and each of us are actually trying to solve problems and in the trenches. So it's and of course from our experience on a Saturday it comes across. So it's really great that we collaborate there. uh, I think in terms of it's pretty exciting. I think the whole kick of actually reducing that cognitive load from hours and to minutes and seconds, where you are able to focus on higher value problems, is super exciting, and how it will evolve, right? But I think one fundamental question to all the listeners or young engineers who are saying that you need to have that curiosity, because you need to ask the right questions to get the right answers, right? Be it over Stack Overflow or Googling or even asking a chat GPT. That's very important at how things actually work under the. So I am okay even if an engineer in an interview said I want to use AI. I said fine, but can you explain me this code? That's the only ability. Use it, because it will be very unfair of me asking somebody, hey, you cannot use a chat GPT or Anthropic. Use it, but can you explain it? Right? Yeah.
Yes, getting into the basics matters the most.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with this, where we like to ask the Sandeep for his final thoughts.
First of all, thanks, Hemant, for organizing such a great session and especially inviting such leaders. Really great hearing all of them. Now, if I have to, let's say, summarize it in one sentence, so I'll say that very exciting times ahead. A lot of disruption is happening, but most importantly, the playing field has been leveled across different areas, whether it is, let's say, experience wise, everybody has same level playing field. The knowledge base, which is restricted to, let's say, some places, some companies, that is also very widely available. So the field is well, that is level played, right? So everybody has opportunity, everybody can do something whatever they want to do. This is what I feel. So very exciting time and lot of opportunities for people.
Thanks, Sandeep. And we'll move here with Prakash.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to be the part of this panel. I would like to conclude with my comments with, like, do not overkill anything with AI. I mean, try to implement AI where it fits. Like Jaideep rightly said, that AI has capability to fit in wherein there is a lot of cognitive load and wherein you want to reduce time from a few minutes to a few seconds. Definitely, AI is a go ahead for those areas, but I've seen people implementing AI just for the sake of it. Right? Anything which can be done via just a few rules, you do not necessarily need AI over there. Right? So, just concluding on that front, that do not overkill your product or your use case with a AI thing. That's it.
Thanks, Prakash. And thanks,
So,
everyone, for the wonderful
He-
insight. And it was great
Hemant, I
learning session.
want to, yeah, sorry,
Yeah,
before
please.
we end, I just want to add one thing. And I think this is for all the audiences sitting here. There are many freshers, I'm guessing, and there were maybe many early joiners in this whole league of AI. There are people usually come up to me and asking questions, will AI gonna replace humans? So guys, the answer is no. The AI, in my opinion, will never gonna replace humans. You will be there. It can help you in probably your day-to-day work, but you guys are not replaceable. So yeah.
Thanks, Neha, for the wonderful closing comments. We are not replaceable. Um, Thanks everyone for a wonderful insight. It was a great learning session for me also, and I believe that's the same for audience. We are getting a great feedback from audience also. And so this was one of the first session that the CNCF Noida has hosted. And with the success of this, we will be planning for the more sessions also. And the conversations doesn't end here. We have the LinkedIn's IDs, and the audience can go ahead and connect with the panelists, and they have follow-up questions. Ask them. Even you can join, ask them, and will be happy to help you out to understand the things. And please follow us, CNCF Noida pages, social media accounts, and join us because we are going to get more and more exciting discussions and events coming up, which are in place. Thank you all for joining. See you next time. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks all our